Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this introductory webinar on behalf of the Colson Fellows Program. You are the 16th class of this program since 2004, and we are really excited to get this year started. This is the largest class ever. I am Michael Craven. I'm the director of the program, and with me on the screen here are some really important people. First, I want to introduce Brooke. Brooke is the associate director of the program, and you will be interacting with Brooke many times throughout the year. And also with me on the screen is Dr. Bill Brown. And Dr. Bill Brown serves as the academic dean of the Colson Fellows Program and the one responsible for curating this curriculum. And I promise you this program that Bill has put together is really going to challenge you. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you ask questions. And at the end of the day, I promise you, it will change your life. These next 10 months are going to be one of the most incredible journeys you have ever been on. And we are excited to go on it with you. So I'm going to sign off here, turn it over to Brooke, who will then turn it over to Bill. And she's going to give you a few instructions. But I look forward to seeing all of you at some points and at various points throughout this forthcoming year, and wish you all the very best, and we'll be praying for all of you. So Brooke?
All right, good evening, everyone. We're so glad that you're here tonight and that you have chosen to join us this year. We are looking forward to getting started, looking through the names that have logged in. I've interacted with many of you and look forward to interacting with you more. This is how we will do all of our webinars, and moving forward, when we have content webinars, you will have the opportunity to actually raise your hand and ask questions of the speakers. Tonight, since we'll mostly be just starting the content and then going through some logistics after Bill concludes his presentation, we're just going to take typed questions. So if you scroll to the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see a Q&A tab and you will see a chat tab. Make sure if you have questions, you choose that Q&A tab and type your question, and we will take those at the end. If you're using an iOS device such as an iPad or iPhone, look at the top of your screen and you will see that option there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Brooke. Well, there's over 300, will be in just a minute. Right now, we're right up against 300, and so we're grateful that you could be with us. And it's very exciting when we think about getting us started again. When we rebooted the program 5 years ago, this is the 5th year. Chuck Colson began this program back in 2004. It was known as the Centurions, as most of you know. And it started out with about 100 people each year. And it was exciting to see what God was doing with them. Basically, it was just reading the best books and having some telephone conferences about them. And then they'd get together 3 times a year. And it has now morphed into what it is now. When Chuck passed away in 2012, though, the program kind of went on a hiatus. It was difficult to get people because I think a lot of people came to the program because they wanted to hang around with Chuck, which is not a bad reason to be part of the program. But when we rebooted the program, John had asked me to come and do that. I had been president at 2 universities and had stepped aside from that and was enjoying life here in Asheville, North Carolina. And I told him I couldn't do it. John Stone Street was one of my students at Bryan College. And, but you know how that goes. So here I am, and it's exciting. And this is our 5th year. And every year, as Michael said, every year, Brooke and I have said, this is the largest it's ever been. And we're excited about that. We'll talk through what the program is going to be. We've got some slides for you and everything. And save your questions at the end. We'll give you an opportunity to ask them. You may have some very functional, practical questions, and Brooke will be able to answer those. And maybe some philosophical kinds of questions too, and we'll make sure that we're able to take care of those as well. We always like to pray together before we begin, and so let's do that right now. Father in heaven, you are so good. And in fact, there's so much going on around us now. It's difficult to get our heart and our mind and our hands around it. But the exciting thing for us as believers is that we don't have to ask why. We just have to ask, now what? What do you want us to do? Throughout history, there have been times of great turmoil, far greater than anything that we're experiencing now. And during those times, people would get serious about life. People would turn to you, and you used believers. You used your children to serve as ambassadors. As the Apostle Paul says, we are Christ's ambassadors, as though God was making his appeal through us. And that's exactly what you do, Lord. You use us. We are your co-laborers. And so I know the people on this webinar tonight, they're part of the Colson Fellows program because they have a desire to want to serve you more deeply. They want to know more. They want to be able to think better. They want to be able to serve and communicate better. And I pray, Father, that we will not lose sight of that's what we're doing, keeping the goal in mind. And it's with that vision, Father, that we ask that you bless each person and bless the next 10 months and let them be aware of how much you are at work in their lives, and whatever changes come about, that they'll be blessed by you, and that the rest of their lives will be different. So thank you, Father. And I can't say amen, Lord, until I ask for a special blessing on those who are really struggling right now with it, whatever, family issues, health issues, financial issues. It can be overwhelming. But we also realize, Father, that you allow these things in our lives to help us grow, and we trust you. We trust you. So we give it to you, Father. Now bless our time together here tonight, we pray. For it's in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Well, again, thanks for being here. Let me get going here to share the screen. And there we go. Brooke, are we up here?
You are. It looks like there you go. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Where will we be without you, Brooke? Well, you're going to get to know Brooke pretty well. A lot of you already know Brooke really well. And she's in many ways the glue that holds everything together. She and I have served together. In fact, Brooke and I worked together at Cedarville University. And when John asked me to take on this role as a senior fellow, to speak and write with the Colson Center, and then to lead the Colson Fellows program, needed somebody to maybe to be an assistant, but to really make things work. And I thought of Brooke first, and very blessed. And it's been, how many years now, Brooke? It's been 4 years, I think.
5 years.
It's been 5 years. Boy, time flies. And it's been such a blessing. And we've got to know so many people. And we will continue to do that. And you're going to be different in just a few months. And it's exciting because of what God does through the program here. So let me get started and talk through exactly what is going to be going on, and to give you a framework. Now that you've signed up and now that you're ready to go, you're going to be a little more attentive and start seeing how the pieces fit together. You'll be on Pathright. You'll be on the platform, and you'll be able to see how this is such a nice way to have everything that you need to be doing right there in front of you. And you can put it in, and you can upload it, or you can type it in however you want. And you don't have to try to remember what goes here and what goes there. It's right there. And if you really get lost, all you have to do is call Brooke. And so she's always available for us. So as we say here, so it begins. Okay, Brooke. I'm not, let's see here.
You stopped sharing.
Well, I didn't. You think I've done this so long, you think I would know what I'm doing.
It's the first of the year.
Yeah.
Just go back into presentation mode and then use the arrows. You'll see them at the bottom of your screen to advance the slide.
That's right. I knew that. There we go. All right. Some of you may have seen this in some magazines. We have several versions of this. And this is one of our very first taglines with the Colson Center, particularly Colson Fellows. An outrage is not a strategy. Actually, it is for a lot of people, to get outraged and to call names and to send tweets and to do all kinds of things to express your deep devotion to God and how much you hate people who disagree with you. And the reality is that that's not really the strategy that God has for us. And we'll talk more about that along the way. But by and large, what God is doing through us is to bring a sense of reconciliation back to the world. We are indeed ministers, ambassadors of reconciliation. And God uses us for that. And how does that work? And in times like this, troubling times like this, it's important to realize that God is using us. And we want to be equipped to do it and to do it very, very well. So how does God restore a broken culture? And one of our ads says with people like the Colson Fellows, people like you. And we are broken people, but we still get to be used by God for a broken culture. And one of the books that you're going to read at the end of the program are 4 questions that every Christian should be asking. What is good in our culture that we can promote, protect, and celebrate? What is missing in our culture that we can creatively contribute? What is evil in our culture that we can stop? And what is broken in our culture that we can restore? Those 4 questions are important because they help us form, in many ways, a plan of how we can get involved with what God is doing in the world around us. I heard a fellow talk about the other day, in fact, it was Ravi Zacharias when he was speaking at a church on a YouTube video. I watch a lot of apologetics videos when I work out, and you can tell I work out a lot. I hear some of you laughing, but I do that just because I want to keep sharp in all this. And Ravi said this. He says, when he meets a Muslim that has come to Christ, and he's met hundreds, he'll say, what was it that brought you to Christ? And they'll say one of 2 things. Number 1, it was through a dream that God had given to them about Jesus Christ. Or number 2, it was the kindness and the care of a Christian. In many ways, it reminds me of Romans chapter 2, verse 4, where the Apostle Paul is talking about pretty much the same thing when he says it is the kindness of God that leads you to repentance. And so when we get involved in culture, when we are kind, when we are serving others as Jesus has called us to do, to walk in those works which he has ordained before that we walk in them and begin to serve so that we can communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ, it's amazing how lives change. But there are times when we have to look at the world around us and say, everywhere Christians live, they should lift up the culture around them, the society around them. At our church, there's about 300 of us, and we visited in a 5-mile radius all the way around. We said, we want to be a testimony to this 5-mile radius. And we went to the prisons, we went to the jail, we went to the police, we went to the schools, we went to the health department, we went to the social services department, we went to the mental health department, and we asked, what do you need? How can we help? And we got a lot of answers and a lot of things to do. And we've gotten our hands really dirty doing some amazing things. But what happens, though, is that everybody gets excited about serving in the community in places they never thought they could. And how people come to the church because we're doing that, and how many people come to Christ as well. And that's the focus. Now, here we are, and God wants to use us, and we want to be used. Now, how do we make the connection? And that's what the Colson Fellows program is designed to actually do for you. Who are Colson Fellows? Colson Fellows are men and women from every walk of life, from corporate CEOs, military generals and officers, university presidents, business owners, homeschool moms or dads, pastors, frontline ministry leaders, and people just like us. You'll find that the over 300 people that are a part of the Colson Fellows program, they go from one end of the spectrum to the other. And the great equalizer in all of this is the presence of the Holy Spirit through Jesus Christ in each person and their heart's desire to do something with what God is doing in the world now. The Colson Fellows program emphasizes personal and skills development, and most importantly, spiritual growth. And I want to say just very, very carefully, whatever you do in order to be a part of what God is doing in culture must be a byproduct of your spiritual growth, must be a byproduct of you following hard after God. Many people get so focused on culture or get so focused on all kinds of things that have a spiritual glow about them, but their own spiritual life is atrophying. And even C.S. Lewis talks about some people get so excited about proving that God exists that they forget all about God, or they think that all God does is exist. Or they're so busy sharing Jesus Christ that they forget all about Jesus Christ because they've got a mission. You know, they've got a role that they're playing, but they forget the spiritual part of it. one of the blessings that we've experienced is that when people go through the Colson Fellows program, they talk about how they have grown so much spiritually. They didn't think that that would happen, but that's an ingrained part of what it means to be a Colson Fellow, and you'll see it through the program. The outcomes are best seen in the creation of a personal mission and vision statement and a 3-year plan to put it into practice. We'll talk more about that here in just a second, because you're thinking, I have to have a 3-year plan. The answer is yes, and we help you get there, and it's pretty exciting, actually. The program follows this. This is the whiteboard when I first put the program together. And of course, I've been at worldview and cultural engagement things for years and years and years. I've taught in universities, and I taught worldview, and I've spoken on worldview in 30-some countries, which is always very exciting. And it's at this point where we realize it's more than just knowing worldviews. It's understanding culture, how cultures change, and then how we could and should be part of the actual engagement. Now, I don't necessarily like the word engagement, but I think the point is that we don't withdraw from culture. Or we don't see culture as being something that is so offensive that we have to pull out. And that there are times when we have to do that, obviously. And in certain sectors of society, we have to do that. But the idea is that God wants us to be salt and light, and we are part of that. But you see, the program begins with worldviews. You're going to be reading books on worldviews. Some of you have already started. Understanding what worldviews are and why every person has a worldview and what that means. And where in many ways that is the baseline for every person God created. We all have a worldview, or we should say a worldview has you. And I'll talk more about this in our next time together. And so you'll be exploring worldviews and understanding them. There are 3 major worldviews, and everybody's worldview usually falls into one of those 3 categories. And that's so helpful when you're talking to them about truth, when you're talking to them about Jesus Christ, is knowing that they are trying to answer the same questions that you are, but they've answered them differently. And here's an opportunity for you to point out aspects of contact as well as aspects of conflict. When we talk about culture, to realize that culture is something that people do. We don't live in a culture, we live in cultures. There are so many different cultures in the United States, for example. Which one do you belong to? Which one do you adhere to? Which one do you get your identity from, for example? Worldviews really arise from a culture, and they are the basic beliefs that people have about life in the world. And it's different in Thailand than it is in San Francisco, than it is in Moscow, than it is in Nairobi. And the way people see the world around them, and they're answering the same questions. As I mentioned, I've spoken in some 30 countries about worldviews, and everybody gets it. Everybody realizes that we are all trying to make sense out of, where did everything come from? Why am I here? How do we know what's right and wrong? How are we supposed to live? And then finally, where is everything going? What happens when I die? Everybody's answering those questions by decision or default. And that forms in many ways, not merely their worldview, but the way they are making sense of the world. And that's where God has spoken into the world and given us true answers to those questions, so that we can not only share that message, but we can live it out as well. When we get into cultural engagement, we spend some time on cultural flashpoints, we call them. And this is where there is a major conflict in a particular culture on issues that are worldview related. Questions that get right at the very heart of what worldviews are and what the basic beliefs are. And see the ones that we explore a little bit in this coming up, this particular class coming up. LGBTQ, you're going to have some readings on this, and we're going to have webinars and so on. Some of the people who are the best speakers on this and give us the best understanding. Issues of racial reconciliation, which has risen really to the top of our culture and our cultural psyche right now. How do we as believers admit to being able to understand what it means that we have to have racial reconciliation? And it's an important question to ask, and it's an important question to answer. Islam, every thinking Christian should know a bit about Islam and what it is and how to understand it. The late Nabil Qureshi will be helping us think through this. Sanctity of life issues. We take most of January and focus on pro-life issues. And it is at the very core of what where culture is struggling right now. Politics, we do have an election coming up. And that's gotten lost in all of this. The whole issue of religious freedom. And it's a growing issue, and there's some concern there, and as well there should be. But we need to be educated on what that means and what we can be doing when we think out loud about it, and what we can do to help maintain what is our First Amendment rights. And then finally, we're going to apply it. We talked about the mission and vision and the plan, 3-year plan. The mission and vision, you're going to put those together during the devotional times in the second half of the program. Along the way, we want you to have a teaching program, and that is we want you to teach some of the things that you're learning to somebody else. And we want you to be creative. Some of you can do it in a Sunday school class. Some of you can get a home group together. One lady met, Brooke, I can't remember, like 4 or 5 high school students at McDonald's for 6 weeks and talked through some of the issues in one of the books that they're reading. And so on. We'll help you with this, but we want you to be creative, because you'll find out here in just a minute why that is important. And I'll talk about the plan here as well. What do people say about the Colson Fellows program? One person said, well, a lot of people say this: I know what I was saved from, now I know what I'm saved for. That's a byline that we use a lot. A lot of people know what they're saved from and what they're saved to even, but they don't know what they're saved for. Why am I here? And for most of you, that's why you're in the program right now. I view my life as before Colson Fellows and after Colson Fellows. And I thought that was an interesting statement. The Colson Fellows program was life-changing for me. It has changed how I view everything. And one guy said, I thought that when I started the program that I might learn a little, but felt I had been well acquainted with current faith teaching and the evangelical community. Boy, was I wrong. I learned so much and was extremely challenged to reevaluate what I believe and why I believe it. This is on a Colson Fellows application. I thought this was interesting. Some situations and issues appeared to be non-resolvable until I began to learn about the importance of worldview. Since that time, I've known people who've completed Colson Fellows and have been privileged to see firsthand the difference that it has made in their life. So Colson Fellows program is a world-class 10-month program designed to educate, equip, and deploy mature Christians to engage the world around them for Christ. A lot of people apply, as you know, but we want individuals to have already a desire to read and to grow, who have a desire to mentor, to be mentored, who have some experience in ministry. And you probably picked that up when you did the application. You're probably thinking, I can't believe this application. You know, it goes on, and why do they want to know this? And it's really an opportunity, I think, to get to know you a little bit better. In fact, one of the old centurions said, if somebody can't do the application, they shouldn't do the Colson Fellows program. And that's probably true. But the idea is mature believers, and that is, you may think, well, Bill, I'm really not that mature a believer. Well, I realize that most of us would not admit that either. But the idea being that we want people whose heart and face is already toward the Lord, and to grow spiritually, and all of this is going to be just a real exciting time for you as well. Utilizing state-of-the-art technology, people from around the world interact with carefully designed curriculum of readings, videos, and webinars. And we are around the world. In fact, there are people that are watching this right now. We have 2 groups in Australia. We have a group in Mumbai, and we have a group, oh goodness, Brooke, you told me. What are some of the other places that we might have some come up?
South Korea.
Pardon me?
South Korea, Singapore. We have people all around the world.
We have people all around the world, individuals and in groups. And Chuck started it mainly as an American program, but it's exciting to see what God has been doing and bringing in groups. And Lynn and I actually went to Australia last year, or I should say in February of this year. And it was really exciting. It's exciting what God is doing in Australia right now. And so it's just neat to see God using the Colson Fellows program as part of that. And I mentioned the cultural flashpoints again. We would need to examine those and understand them. You'll never completely understand them, but at least you get a handle on how they fit into the worldview framework of what is going on, so that you can be able to give a response when people ask you about it. The program also emphasizes personal and skills development, and most importantly, spiritual growth. We're going to keep saying that. We want you to grow spiritually, and I think you will. The outcomes are best seen in the creation of a personal mission and vision, and a 3-year plan to put into practice what is learned. Again, saying this to get it into your mind now. Some of you are saying, a 3-year plan, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Well, maybe you did. But the idea is that what we want you to do, and this is Chuck's vision, by the way, is to not read all of this material and watch these incredible videos and webinars and say, I had such a great time. Oh, a good time was had by all. Well, actually, the purpose of this is to equip you so that you can be used by God in ways that you never dreamed of before. And how do you do that? Well, you start praying for it. In fact, you should start praying tonight if you haven't already. God, I want to be used by you. Open up doors for me. And you may say, well, what is that going to involve? And I'll explain here in just a second what that involves. But start praying now for God to open up opportunities for you. Maybe it's something that you had no idea that you'd be doing. We've had a lot of people say, I know exactly what I want to do. And by the time they got to the end, they're doing something else. And that's okay too, isn't it? Some people take their first year just to explore the opportunities in the areas around them, which is good too. And then God opens up doors afterwards. So there's lots of things. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you examples of what Colson Fellows have done in the past. In fact, when you get on Pathright, all of those who have been, not all, most of those who have been through the program before, or a lot of those who've been through the program before, will be there too. And you can interact with them. And we are also going to have a database, also going to have a database with what they've done. And so you can get some good ideas from that. So, and you can start looking at that, right away. And we'll hopefully, I'd say right away soon, so that you'll be able to get some ideas and start praying. As I mentioned, Chuck believed the best way to demonstrate that you have learned something is to teach it. Participants in the Colson Fellows program teach a series of lessons using course material. And you can just use anything you want. Now, we're going to circle back and talk about this in a couple months. But, you can take one of the books and teach some of the first parts of the chapter, or some people will take some of the videos and have people over at their home and watch some of the videos. Hearing John Lennox at Harvard Medical School talking about the problem of suffering, and then taking questions from the faculty and students of Harvard Medical School, which is not necessarily a friendly audience, but listen to how he is able to talk to them, and not only the content, but the way in which he talks about Jesus Christ, the way he gives such a great perspective on suffering from the biblical perspective. These are just gold. These are platinum, and they're wonderful ways for you to be able to see this is how you do it, and hopefully make it a part of your own life. But to have a teaching practicum where you can bring people to share that with you, then I think that's exciting. And you'll be able to share that with individuals, and you'll be able to grow, help other people grow as well. And then the 3-year plan for ministry, you develop a plan to utilize what you've learned in their spheres of influence. Some from previous participants have included prison, pro-life initiatives, teaching kids, high schoolers, serving in politics, if you can believe that, become politicians. Well, the list goes on. Some Colson Fellows start ministries, but many come alongside ministries that exist already and become a part of that. So that's the last time I think I'll mention it. Maybe there's one more time. But I want you to begin thinking about that with the end in mind and what God might have for you. Here's the books you're going to read. If you count them up, I hope there's 13 there. I just put I just changed them out here a couple hours ago to this year. And these are such great books. And we've got some good ones in here that are so practical. Everything from tactics, which shows you how to engage. There's a lot of apologetics, which gives you content, how to argue and so on, what to argue. But tactics tells you how to do it. Greg Kugel is just amazing at this, and it's so helpful. And every Christian should read Mere Christianity once a year, because these wonderful radio broadcasts during World War II in this book have brought millions of people to Christ around the world. It's just amazing. And as you look around there, you see a lot of these books reflect some of the keys that we've talked about. Some of the new ones this year are Cultural Apologetics. You see there in the second column by Paul Gould. Wonderful book, wonderful, challenging book. It's a different way of looking at apologetics, and it's exciting. You see Carpe Diem in the third column. Os Guinness, it's his latest book. He writes about a book a year. And this one it just really got to me, because he's talking about the different perspective of time that different worldviews have, and how the Christian perspective really makes it so that we are designed by God to engage. This is not the chronos, that is the what time of day is it, what day is it, what year is it, but the kairos, the opportunity. And every day is a kairos day. Every day is an opportunity day, and how we should be used. And we're going to do a webinar with Os Guinness. You get to meet him and ask him questions, which is exciting. Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, Nabil's biography is just spectacular. We miss him so much. And then Holy Sexuality and the Gospel by Christopher Yuan, the best books on a theological perspective of sex and sexuality. And he's in his own life, his same-sex attraction, homosexuality. He gives so much practical after he gets, it's just really something. And you'll come out of that with just a whole different perspective of this issue to move on. And then A Practical Guide to Culture by John and Brett is, it's very practical. I mean, it really is. It's exceedingly practical, very popular, particularly with high school teachers. And here's some of the people that will be speaking with you, and some of them we've invited that we're anticipating they will join. And you're probably familiar with a lot of them, like Johnny. Erickson Tata, she loves Colson Fellows, and she does so much for us. Jim Wallace, he's a hard-nosed homicide detective. You've probably seen him on TV a lot. Los Angeles Police Department and so on, and now he's an apologist. He's amazing. Jo Vitale, she said this should be her first year with us. She's a PhD from Oxford University, and brilliant, and excited to have her with us. And there you see Oz down in the bottom. Chris Brooks is a good friend of ours, pastor and author up in Detroit. And Michael Lindsay, who is also a Colson Fellow himself, who is the president of Gordon College. And then there are webinar speakers like John Stone Street and me and Glenn Sunshine, who is also a senior fellow, the Colson Center. Jennifer Marshall from the Heritage Foundation is brilliant legal and practical political mind as well. Amy Sherman's book on Kingdom Calling is so good on understanding your role, your job in light of what God is doing. Gabe Lyons, who's also a Colson Fellow, and his Q Ideas, which is the Christian TED Talks, which is blowing up everywhere. Just wonderful what he's doing. And nobody shares the message of the sanctity of life like Scott Klusendorf. And you're going to love hearing him and give us some more perspective on that. Here's John Lennox. He's not at Oxford there, but he's, Brooke will tell you, he and I are best friends. But he's a mathematician from Oxford, and he's just brilliant, as many of you know. Many of you have heard him. And of course, I'm a mathematician as well, and but he knows more about math than I do. But we have spent a lot of time together. It's been a lot of fun. We had a fundraiser for a week over in Yorkshire together with our wives, and that was a blast. But I'm mesmerized by his abilities, and it's just we're very blessed that he loves the Colson Fellows so much and does a lot with us. There's Christopher Yuan. I've described him. Walter Strickland, actually another one of my students from the past, and he's assistant professor at Southeastern Seminary, and he's brilliant. And he gives us such insight into theology just in general, and even Black theology, African American theology in the United States, the history of it. He's writing a book on that. It's just fascinating. Gives us some perspectives. And then you get to read a lot of articles as well. Cornelius Plantinga's book, the article is called Sin, Not the Way It's Supposed to Be. It will change the way that you look at the fall and sin. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a letter from a Birmingham jail. Did you know most Christians have never read the letter from a Birmingham jail? And the thing that I hear most from Colson Fellows at the end of the program is, I am ashamed that I have never read Letter from a Birmingham Jail. And I just think it's cool that his father, Michael King, pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, went to Germany for a meeting of the denomination and in Berlin. And this is 1934. Hitler had just been elected to his post as chancellor in 1933. And as he traveled around Germany, he saw an incredible legacy of Martin Luther and what he had done and how God had used him. And so Michael King went home, officially had his name changed from Michael King to Martin Luther King. And then his 5-year-old son, who was Michael King Jr., he renamed him Martin Luther King Jr. So that's where the MLK comes from Martin, MLK's father, coming back in many ways is a legacy of Martin Luther himself. We have Neil Shenvi is going to talk to us about critical theory. He's fascinating. Princeton, UC Berkeley. He's actually a quantum chemist. Guy is brilliant, doing research at Yale and Duke, PhD in all these areas. And he stepped aside from that and now teaches homeschoolers. And he's an apologist. He writes about critical theory and some other things. But this guy is amazing. Talk about downwardly mobile. He's just a brilliant guy. You're going to love him. And the Heritage Foundation, you're actually going to read the Constitution. Some of you have never done that. You get to do that and interact with that a little bit. And then Rod Dreher, who's a good friend of all of ours. He's a senior editor and blogger at the American Conservative. How Dante Can Save Your Life is one of my favorite books that he wrote. But the article that we're going to read from him is entitled Sex After Christianity. So that'll get you thinking about it. And it's really quite good. Some of the videos we'll be having, Scott Klusendorf is going to talk to you. He's actually going to debate the former head of the ACLU at Wayne State University on the issue of pro-life. That is magnificent. And again, John Lennox, as I mentioned, at Harvard. Mark Dury up there in the top right, he's from Australia. He is brilliant as well. He's actually an Islamic scholar as a Christian, and he's fascinating. And you'll just love it because, anybody that has an accent like that, you believe everything they say. And Anthony Bradley, you got to love the guy with the bow tie. He's a sharp theologian, and we have a brief video of his and some other things. And then the Bible Project. We usually read a book on understanding the Bible and how to read the Bible and so on. And this year we decided we'd try the Bible Project, which is they're short videos on various portions of the Bible. So you're not reading, but you're actually watching these videos, which are intriguing. And we chose to focus on a number of books on how you can understand specific books of the Bible. And the thing just kind of unfolds and gives you a perspective of what it is. And we think you like it. We're anxious to get your feedback. I have a PhD in biblical studies, and I was mesmerized by this thing. And I hope you will too. And I hope it gives you some perspective of the Bible and helps you understand it better and love it more and read it more as well. And then, of course, Nabil Qureshi and Ravi Zacharias, both home with the Lord. Nabil, way too young. And Ravi, of course, his legacy lives on, and we will miss both of them. And but fortunately, their teaching still lives on. We have videos and books by them. as well as some videos and videos and books by them that we're going to be able to use with you, and you're going to profit from those immeasurably. And then there's a video series that Colson Center has started posting on YouTube. Oh, I forget, maybe 6 months ago, maybe more. And it's called "What Would You Say?" And there are, oh, Brooke, I can't remember. I'm going to say 30, 40 of these, and they grow in number every few weeks. And the idea is each of the videos is like 4 or 5 minutes with somebody saying, now, what would you say if somebody said to you, if you oppose same-sex marriage, it's the same as opposing interracial marriage. What do you say? So these short videos are intended to equip you with the facts and, of course, the means and just the spirit in which you communicate it. But they're on issues like this. What if somebody says Jesus never condemned homosexuality? Or if somebody says atheism is more rational than belief in God? Is an embryo a person? Do you have to choose between science and religion? Is the earth warming? And do you have to choose between science and religion? We'd have that in there twice, so therefore you'd know it twice. But these are going to be a part. We'll interject these. Like I said, they're only about 4 minutes or so, 4 to 5 minutes, and they're kind of addictive to you. So you watch one, you want to watch another one after another one, and you can always go back to them and take a few notes. But I think you'll find these very, very helpful and spot on to specific issues. So when we talk about what you're going to be doing, if you look at the schedule, this is what you find. For August 2020, we're getting ready to enter into August, the end of next week. This is how Brooke has laid it out. For August, you're going to listen and read daily Breakpoint commentaries. Breakpoint comes on the radio, as you know, every day during the week. And you can listen to it. You can get the app. You can listen to it there, or you can read it. You can get the email. And that's something for you every day. And the important thing about this, as well as the daily devotionals, is that one of the goals of the Colson Fellows program is to reshape the way you think about life in the world. And that you start looking at the world around you through the eyes of Christ so that you can love it with the heart of Christ. You start looking at it worldviewishly. You start seeing people through the eyes of Christ. They're not enemies, even people with whom you disagree. Didn't Jesus say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you? And the idea that how can we do that? The only way we can do that is if we look at them through the eyes of Christ and see them that way. And that comes by a habit of every day. Jesus talked about we take up our cross daily and follow him. And in fact, a good study for you would be to go through the Bible and see everywhere the word daily or each day is mentioned. God intends for us to live life each day. A good life is made up of good days. And so that's why we want you doing something every day. Breakpoint commentaries during the week and daily devotionals during the week. There's 5 of those. And then do some readings in the book. You got a couple books and portions of books that you're supposed to be reading. You'll see those there underneath read. Reading those a little bit each day. It saves, not only does it save time in the long run, but it allows your mind to percolate with that information and that content a little bit. The devotionals are intended to, at the beginning, to make sure you understand the story, the grand story of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. That is the narrative of the Bible. That is the narrative of the world. That's God's story. And everything that we see in the world around us fits into that narrative. And once you start understanding that that's the narrative of the world, and you are here right in the redemption part, hopefully getting ready to move into the restoration part, you begin to understand how the world fits together, how history fits in with all this, and what the future holds. And that not only gives us hope, but it also gives us clarity in when we speak and when we share the wonderful message of Christ. So, taking up your cross daily, doing daily things, getting yourself into the pattern and the habit of thinking in ways that honor the Lord and from a worldview perspective. And Brooke has here too. This is what you got to read this month. And How Now Shall We Live by Chuck Colson and Nancy. The part on creation, where did we come from and who we are? Who are we? Knowing God by J.I. Packer. This is the book, the spiritual dimension book that we're going to be focusing on this year. J.I. Packer, as you know, just died a couple of days ago. This book, almost 50 years, has changed so many lives. And I think you're going to be blessed and encouraged by this. Not to know about God, we do need to do that, but we need to know God, because that is the essential part of why he created us, that we know him. In fact, I love the way Paul says in Galatians chapter 4, he says, when you came to know the Lord, or when God came to know you, that is, you became aware that God knows you as an individual. Making Sense of Your World, our book, our worldview book. And you only read the first 5 chapters of that book anyway, just that's all you read of it. Other parts of the program take care of what else is in there. You get to attend 2 webinars. John and I will kick things off in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about worldviews. And then Glenn Sunshine, 2 weeks after that, he's going to be talking about what's in his book. And now the Glenn Sunshine one, we may move to a little bit later, but we'll let you know. And we'll keep you apprised of all of that so that you know. Most webinars are Monday night, some Tuesday nights. They begin at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And we finish up somewhere around 9:15, 9:30, somewhere in there, sometimes earlier. But we want to have a good time for questions as well. And oftentimes, as a speaker, we want to make sure that they know what, how much time that they want to be able to have. And the videos, there they are: How to Read the Bible Project, What is a Christian Worldview by Bruce Ashford, which is a short little video, very clever. And the Benny Kuiper, A Modest Proposal with John Stonestreet. He puts together the Benedict option and the Kuiper option and talks about how we should engage the culture. Well, let me stop there. And Brooke is going to give some specifics as it relates to you, as it relates to Pathright and payments and those kind of things, so that you can see these. And by the way, Brooke, we're going to have this available, right? The PowerPoint available for everybody. Yeah, the PowerPoint, Brooke will tell you, it's going to be up for everybody, and you'll be able to have this for your own and go back and see some of the information that you'll see on the screen. So, Brooke, why don't you take it away and talk about some of this information here. Whoops.
Can you go back, and I'll let you know when to advance it. So now that Bill has shared all this wonderful content with you, you're wondering, when can we get started? I know that you are all excited to begin your work. Most of you are in the July intro course in Pathright, so you're starting to get your feet wet on how to use the learning platform. And just to give you a bit of an overview, the first assignment, the first devotional, and the webinar with John Stonestreet will be on Monday, August 3rd. So that's when we will officially begin. We will open up the course for everyone. There may be some that we open it up for late this week, but all of next week will be spent opening up the course for you. And when we open up the full course in Pathright, you will be just in your cohort. So you'll be in your regional cohort with your director, the leaders there, the mentors, and the other learners in your cohort. If you're in an online cohort, you'll be with the other people in your time zone. We will share a little bit later that there will be opportunities to engage other learners outside of your cohort through our student portal, which will also allow you to engage alumni. Alumni can engage there as well. So we'll share a little bit more about that during our next webinar. But tonight we just wanted to share a little bit about Pathright. When we open up the full course for you, much like you receive with the intro course, you will receive a link to access that course. You have to click that exact link. If you just go to your homepage or your dashboard, it won't show up there until you join the course. And some of you have asked about your payments. Well, I've been keeping record of how you intend to pay. You've seen that question in Pathright. If you haven't answered that question yet, please go ahead and do so, because that tells me how I need to give you instructions to join Pathright. Pathright only allows full payments. So in the intro course, you paid either the $900 in full or you paid your $300 deposit. If you intend to pay the remainder in full, when I open up the next course, you'll be able to do that. If you will be making payments, I'm going to set you up with a payment plan through MoonClerk. It's the system that we use, and the payments will be due August 1st through November 1st. It's 4 equal payments. So if you're paying, for instance, the $900 and you have already paid your $300 deposit, you'll pay 4 equal payments of $150 each to get to that $900. So we'll be sharing more information very soon, but you're not late on anything, you're not missing anything. We'll make sure that you have everything that you need. And as I share, the course is being finalized. That takes a bit of time to curate the curriculum, the questions, do the copy editing, set the due dates and all those things. So I'm working closely with the PathRight team to make sure we are able to launch everything for you next week. Bill, could you go to the next slide? So something that's helpful to know about PathRight is it follows a funnel system. You may have used learning platforms where there's a general overview and you find everything on the same page. But PathRight, which you could guess from its name, is intended to lead learners down a specific path. So once you join the course, and we will include instructions to do that, every time you will want to log in at your dashboard. Most of the questions that I get where people struggle a little bit with where to find things is when they save a course. So for us, courses are months. So perhaps you save the link for the month of August, and then you're confused about how to get out to other things that you may need. So if you save that dashboard, you will find a list of all of your courses, and then you can join them as need be. A collection is a list of courses. So for us, that's going to be the 2020-2021 Colson Fellows Program. You'll see that when you log into your collection, once we make that available to you, you'll be able to view all of your courses, which are August through April, all of your assignments there. And then within the courses, we have lessons, which you have seen in July, and then there are steps. Each of the assignments, after you complete a section of the assignment, you will see complete step. You need to do that in order for it to register that it has been completed. Your directors can view these, I can view these, leadership team members can view these. But one thing we do encourage regional directors that you'll see as you get into your devotionals that some of those are pretty personal. And we want you to feel free to type what you want there. So we encourage directors and mentors to talk with you and just be looking that you have completed those, but don't necessarily read all of those unless you ask for them to. You also see within steps that you can answer a question. And again, those are the things that only leadership can see, or you can answer some discussion questions. I've included some discussions. You've seen that with the Bible reading plans, and you've seen that where I've asked you to introduce yourselves. Those can be read by everybody. So again, when you're just in your regional cohort, those are going to be a lot easier to manage because you'll only see the people that are in there with you. Bill, could you go to the next slide? And one thing, just as a reminder, when you get the email from me, make sure you follow each step exactly, as that will tell you how to get to the course, how to pay exactly what you're supposed to pay. But I also want to share with you the the PathRight Help Center. It is extremely helpful. They've added a lot of things there. Some of the things have come from our cohorts in the past. As we've asked questions, they've added them there for future learners. So if you go to pathright.com and then Learn and Help Center, you can type just about anything there and you'll find the answer. If you have a specific question, when you are logged into our Path, you will see at the bottom right-hand corner a circle, a gold circle with a question mark. Go ahead and click that and you can type your answer, or your question. Some of you have already been doing that. Those go to me and they go to PathRight. And the great thing about that over email is that because it goes to PathRight, if it is an issue that we need to be worked out through the system, I can tag them and they can see what browser you're using, what version you're using, and most of the questions that they would need answered in order to serve us is right there. Bill, could you go to the next slide? All right, so as Bill was sharing, he shared a little bit of the August overview, which you will see when we open up the course. But at the beginning of every month, we will provide for you a document of all of the devotionals for that month and everything that is due that month. So you can keep that with you, you can download it, you can print it, and that just keeps you on track. We do require that all of the answers be completed in Pathright, but this will just give you something to review as a study guide throughout the month. A lot of people ask, what happens if I fall behind? If you fall behind, we encourage you to catch up with where we are in the course at the time. So start reading where we are at the time and then backfill as you're able to with your time. That's because with the meetings of the regional cohorts and even with the national webinars, we want to ensure that you can participate in the discussion. So if you're able to jump back in, that'll allow you to do so when your cohort meets. We also have people who say, well, what if I need to do the devotionals ahead of time or some of the reading ahead of time? We understand that happens because of travel or whatever else is going on in your life at the time. But we encourage you that it's intended for you to take your time with it. And so don't breeze through it. And as much as is possible, stay on schedule with your cohort and with the rest of the participants, because again, if you get too far ahead, that can be challenging to engage in conversation with your cohorts as well. Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do. I think that when you start engaging the program, you're going to kind of find your own way, what works best for you, the time of day, and so on and so forth. The devotionals start off very slow. They're very basic to start off with, but they do pick up speed along the way. And the goal, there's a method to all of it. So just sit back, relax, and let God teach you through what you're going to be doing. We have you write out some things or type up some things, as you go through. But the goal is for you to be able to visualize exactly God's story and exactly the most important themes to understand and so on. To cohort leaders, I know a lot of you are online here right now. We are so grateful, number one, for you leading the group. You've been through the program, you know what it's like. You can help those with the comfort that you have received from the Lord to comfort them. But we also want you to be very proactive, and we expect you to be proactive as well. We want you to help encourage and to check up on everybody. The last thing you want to have happen is you haven't heard from somebody or for one reason or another, 2 months, 3 months, and then you find out they're all behind and maybe your intervention before could have been helpful. And again, and those of you going through the program, help one another. It's always good to find somebody else that's in the program and team up and say, let's talk together, let's pray together, and let's talk about what we're doing together. It just really enhances what you do. And because when you share this kind of information in this environment, it is really, really quite exciting. It really is. One thing we say about Colson Fellows is that once a Colson Fellow, always a Colson Fellow. And that means that when you finish the program, you are an official Colson Fellow. You will get the decoder ring and the membership card and everything that goes with it. And you actually you are commissioned, which is very exciting. We need to talk about that, don't we, Brooke? Okay. You're also on Pathright for as long as you want to be, for the rest of your life. And you're invited to all of the webinars, and you are all the, the idea is that we want you to continue to be a part, and we encourage you to maintain contact with the people who are part of the cohort that you're involved right now. Mm-hmm. So all of that working together gives a tremendous opportunity at fellowship that you haven't had before. And in many ways, that's transformative as well. Let me see if there's anything else, Brooke. Okay. Why don't you say something about Wilberforce weekend?
All right, and then we have a lot of questions to get to in the next half hour. So we will, after I share a little bit about Wilberforce Weekend, I will jump into your questions. Wilberforce Weekend is an annual event of the Colson Center. It's a large-scale event, and we were disappointed to not have it this year because of COVID-19, but we did have the Truth Love Together digital event, which was amazing, and I hope that many of you were able to take part in that. But we are planning to have Wilberforce Weekend next year. It will be in May of 2021. The location is still being decided, and the dates are still being decided because that will depend on what hotel we end up going with. Typically the second or third week in May, so if you can hold those if you're able to. Wilberforce Weekend is not required, but we highly encourage you to be there. It's a family reunion for Colson Fellows, and because we weren't able to have the 15-year celebration this year, we will be doing it next year, and we would love for you to be a part of that. And it also includes the commissioning ceremony of the Colson Fellows. It's on the Sunday morning of the event, and it's a powerful time. We have a lot of people who became a Colson Fellow after attending the commissioning ceremony of friends or just stayed over to attend that. So keep that in mind, and we will let you know as soon as we have more specific details.
Are you going to talk about, you're going to post this,
Yes, I post all the webinars. I think I shared this in the email I sent to you all today. If you're in the learning platform, I post the recording of all webinars in the month's conclusion within 48 hours of the event. So you'll find the recording in the July conclusion, and I'll also include Bill's PowerPoint there.
Right. Okay.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Robert says, I live in Arizona, a COVID-19 hotspot. Most in-person meetings have been canceled or moved to Zoom. Will there be guidance in using these remote tools? Yes, absolutely. If you're in a regional cohort, your regional cohort director will work with you closely on how to adjust those meetings. If you're in an online cohort, you'll hear from both your Pacific director and Steve Hunter, who oversees our online cohorts for us. And one thing I failed to mention is I plan to, once we open the full course, do weekly Zoom sessions where I'll just let you guys know that I will be on Zoom. So if you have any specific questions, this won't be a session where I'll have a PowerPoint or anything. I'll just be open for you to ask your specific questions. So look for more information on that as well. Are there books that were used previously but are not being used this year? If so, can we get a list of them for future reading? Yes, we update the curriculum every year. So we would be happy to provide you with some of the books that were in previous curriculums if you would like.
And you know, Brooke, I have that list of almost 100 books that we consider. I developed this list of 80 to 100 books and choose the 13 from that list. And last year, I see some of you who are last year saying, can I get that list? And so I sent you that list too. So if you really want a reading list, then I'll send you a reading list.
I'm sure that's what the Commission Colson Fellows from last year are doing now, jumping into that reading list.
Right.
Any updates on the delivery of books? I apologize. This was an issue last year as well, unfortunately. Christian book distributors aren't as quick as Amazon, so we make that available to you, but sometimes if you're accepted later into the process, you're waiting a little bit on the books, and that can be frustrating because you need those books to start. I talked with my colleague who oversees that process, and he assured me that all books are now available with the exception of How Now Shall We Live. So I have him working on as quick as possible to make that one available. It is available in an ebook, but if it's something you need immediately and you have already purchased the book bundle, let me know. If you have not purchased the book bundle, you can purchase books from your favorite seller. So if you want to do Amazon so you can get it much quicker, you are welcome to do that. The books do ship within 2 days of purchase, but they're not as quick as Amazon, so it may take a little while for them to get to you. Let me see here. Well, we have access to the videos and all the other material associated with the Colson Fellows Program after we complete this program. Yes, absolutely. You will always have access to your work in Pathright, but you will also have access to the alumni portal. We plan to put the devotionals there. Some people like to go through the devotionals again. We also add the current curriculum so you can see what new classes are studying. And as Bill shared, you're always invited to attend the webinars with the current class. So once a Colson Fellow, always a Colson Fellow. You have access to everything that you have done, plus what future years will do as well. Someone asked, will we get to interact with Oz Guinness? Oz Guinness is doing a webinar for us. He has already been confirmed. It's in the new year. It's in 2021, so he will be joining us. He was supposed to join us at Wilberforce weekend this year, so hopefully he'll be with us in 2021. Typically, if he is able to attend Wilberforce weekend, though we haven't confirmed that yet, he does do a session just for the Colson Fellows. Let's see. What books did you previously use on learning to read the Bible? Do you remember How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth?
Right, How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth, and Glenn Powell's book,
Saving the Bible from Ourselves.
Saving the Bible from Ourselves, and which was a very controversial book, which made it great. One thing you're going to find, everybody, is that not everything in every book you're going to agree with. And that's okay, because you got to realize we have a wide, very broad spectrum of people from different denominations and so on. But we focus on that which makes historic Christianity that core. And so some people have a particular view of the Bible, and Glenn Powell's book sometimes challenges some of that. And it was good. We even had him on a webinar so people could excoriate him live. And that was a great webinar, though, wasn't it?
It really was.
But I think those are the two we've used. I think only two we've used in the last 5 years.
Yes. And someone's asking some more questions about subscribing to the daily devotionals and when you can access them. Again, those will be accessible before August 3rd. We typically open up the course about a week before, so we're on target to do that. And then everything has due dates. So you can, once you're in Pathright, you'll see exactly when it's due. You'll actually get reminders about what is due when. But yes, if someone asks if they're away from the internet, can they access things? You can't answer your questions, unfortunately, but that's why we give you that month overview. So if you know you're going to be away, you can pull those Word documents and then just input the responses into Pathright later. And while we encourage you to listen to the webinars live, because when we start doing the content webinars with speakers, you'll be able to ask them questions. You'll be able to raise your hand and ask questions or type your questions, and we want you to be able to interact with them. But if you're unable to listen live, that's okay. We will post the recording and you can access it later. Let's see. Is it possible for someone to still join the program? Yes, we encourage sooner rather than later, since there are July assignments and we don't want people to start feeling behind. But if you know someone who is interested, you can encourage them to start the application and get it in as soon as possible. We do have a document that we share with the July reading assignment so that we can give that to them and they can start preparing while they're waiting for their references to come in and their approval. When I answer questions for my assignments, will I be able to save them? Yes. So all of that will be saved for you in Pathright. Will there be a compilation of our written material at the end of the course or end of the month that we can gather once it's typed into Pathright? Yes, right now Pathright allows you to save or print assignments by assignment. I have asked them if they could open up a feature that would let you save or print via course. That way you can just keep it with you. Again, you'll always have access in Pathright, but if you wanted to download it to your own device, you can do that. Someone's asking, when will cohorts get together? Your cohort directors will be in touch with you about that. Many will start in August. So you'll hear from them more on that. Some may be starting a little bit later, and it may differ based on COVID restrictions and what that looks like. If you're in an online cohort, you will hear from Steve Hunter, who is scheduling those, and he will do that very soon. Is the Breakpoint commentaries Monday through Sunday? Last week I only received the Breakpoint commentary Monday through Friday. That is correct. The short blurbs are Monday through Friday, and then we have the Point podcast and articles and some other things. So the short Breakpoint commentaries that we ask you to subscribe to are Monday through Friday. We encourage you to subscribe to everything. We will, in the student portal, when we open that up, have a place for you to discuss what you're learning there. Dee says, I'm excited about the program with you all. Many leaders and even great churches would say, can't we just love Jesus and he will take care of all this other stuff, and do not want to engage in the cultural issues of the day. And this is for you, Bill. How do you encourage pastors and other church leaders around the importance of these issues?
Well, it is a reality that, particularly at a time like this, we tend to not want to speak because everything is so divisive. We live in a binary world that you are either, you're either Democrat or Republican, you're either straight or you're gay, you're either, this and this. And so let's forget all of that and let's just talk about the Bible. Now, there's, in one sense, that's good. We need to go back to that. But throughout history, some of the great times of Christian involvement have been when people, particularly Christian leaders, have spoken into what's happening in culture. And that's one of the reasons we do the program. It's one of the reasons we go out and speak in different places. And we find ourselves coming up against some pushback, as you can imagine, but also a growing number of pastors getting involved in the Colson Fellows program for the very thing you're talking about, because they feel ill-equipped. I went to seminary for 7 years, and I really didn't learn anything about worldviews or culture. I translated the whole Bible from Greek and Hebrew and got a PhD in biblical studies, but culture was separate from all of that. It felt like you pick it up as you went along, and I think some seminaries are changing that quite a bit.
Someone asked if Moonclerk is taking place of Pathright. No, Moonclerk is just a payment database, so it allows you to go in and set up your payment plan, because Pathright doesn't allow partial payments. So that is what we use to establish that. So if you pay in Moonclerk, or if you have paid in full when you join the intro course, we will give you free access to the portal, to Pathright, since you've already paid, and we'll send you those details.
That's such a weird name, isn't it? Moonclerk.
What's Moonclerk? It is.
I'm sorry.
Someone asked early on, we had talked about a San Antonio symposium, and is that still happening in January? It is not. For several reasons, we decided it was best to not host that event. Some of it was just not knowing where the world would be at that time, but there were other factors as well. We do want to keep the cost down for you as much as possible. We will in the future be hosting symposiums, not this year, but as an alum, you will be aware of those and invited to attend those in your region. So we will share more about that. Someone's asking, will we get to interact with John Lennox? Right now, he is not scheduled to do a webinar, but because he's best friends with Bill Brown, I am hoping that will change. How many Colson Fellows graduates are there currently? We're over 1,700 and below 1,800, I think. So I'm still calculating the class that just finished. And this year, we're going to have well over 300 in the program, probably closer to 400. Let's see, I'm trying to see here. So here's one you can answer, Bill. Some speakers were listed as senior fellows. How is that different from a Colson fellow?
A Colson Fellow is just somebody who's been through the Colson Fellows program and commissioned. A senior fellow, and in fact, senior fellows usually are a part of organizations, think tanks, and so on. And it's actually a position of great authority. No, it's just a position of usually you teach and instruct, you use whatever skills you have for the furtherance of whatever the mission and purpose of the organization is. And so there are, how many senior fellows? About 4 of us, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually,
yeah.
Glenn, and then
Jay Warner Wallace.
Jay, and somebody else. Anyway, but yeah, there's 4 of us. And I'm actually employed by the Colson Center and to do this and to help lead the Colson Center with John and Steve too. So that's where I fit in.
Someone asks, should we register for each webinar? Yes, you will need to register for each webinar. That is because Zoom will send you a personal link for each webinar so that you can access them. Someone asked, is there a list of further reading for specific topics? And Bill, I think that's how you broke up the 100 reading list. So I think that is topical. Are all books available in ebook? If you want to email me, I can confirm with you. Most are. There are a couple that are not. Does everyone get into the program? We do want to make the program available to as many people as possible. I will say sometimes the application itself is self-selecting. So we find more that people step back or defer and have to kind of orient their lives to have the time to do it. And there are times that we don't accept individuals, but our goal is for everyone to go through the program because we think it's that important. The July work, is that all pre-course work? Yes, officially we begin in August. This is kind of before the official start. This is like the pre-start here, but the content it will be starting in August. Will assignments be graded? No. Your directors will ensure that you have finished your assignments and they will give you feedback on your assignments, but no one is grading your assignments. Will we discuss Mere Christianity? I think in your regional cohorts, many of you will, and you'll see there's some discussion questions about it, but part of that, why we read it now, is it's foundational to start the program. Do you want to add anything to that about Mere Christianity?
That's true.
All right. Here's a good one from Kip, one of our longstanding directors in Houston. Do learners have to sign up for the Culture Translator? So I'll let Bill share more about what the Culture Translator is. It's through a ministry called Access. And we're going to do 2 things this year. One, you all get a subscription to it. It comes out on Friday afternoons. And you will receive that via email. So when we launch the full course, I will give them a list of everyone's email addresses. I'm telling you that now because oftentimes many people accidentally unsubscribe, and it's a little bit of a challenge to get you resubscribed. But because of that, what we're also going to do is we're going to post the article. I'm still deciding. Most likely we're going to do that in the student portal so that you can engage on it as well and find it if you have a hard time finding it via email. But I'll let Bill share more about what that is.
Yeah, the Culture Translator that comes out every Friday is a ministry of Access. And Access focuses on popular culture, particularly as it relates to teens and even preteens, children, and all the way through high school. And what they'll do is they will give you, because we're getting the premium, right, Brooke? We're getting the premium one? Okay. So we're getting you the premium one for free. It's not free for you. I mean, it's not free for us, but it's free for you. And this will be the 13 things that happened this past week in popular culture that affect kids. And they'll talk about what it is, and they'll give links. They'll talk about a worldview perspective of why this is important. And they'll talk about how you as an adult, a parent, a teacher, youth pastor, can interact and to utilize this material in their lives to get the idea for access. They used to, teach kids, and they realized they were teaching the wrong people about culture, pop culture, and so on. So now they're teaching the parents and the adults because their goal is to foster communication and conversation with the kids. And it is gold. I mean, last year, I think they started over 1 million conversations for parents and others with their kids. And it's just remarkable. So the idea is you get it free for this during this program here. And then afterwards you can sign up for it, and it's $5 a month, I think, or something like that. There's a free one where you don't get 13, you may get 3 or 4 things, but it is one of the best things. And it's it takes you 10 minutes to read it. It's one of the best 10 minutes of the week. You're going, oh my gosh, I didn't know about this, and so on. But it's really good, and it fits in well with your understanding of worldview and culture as well.
It's great. Some are asking about the 100 books reading list. We will share that with all of you. Last year we shared it in the student portal. We've also shared it in the alumni portal. So we will share that with you. Someone asked, is there a way to subscribe to the Breakpoint commentaries via Alexa as a daily update? I'm not aware of that, but I will check on that. I am not sure, but I will ask our marketing team about that.
Brooke, if you get the Colson Center app, it's there every day.
Okay.
And just do it. You can go through Alexa that way if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked discount. We give discounts for spouses, $100 off each. So the tuition is $800. And because you guys had already paid your deposit, we're rolling the rest of that discount into your payment plan. Are we commissioned before the completion of the 3-year plan? Yes. We ask for proposals in March for both the 3-year plan and the teaching project. And we want those to be approved before commissioning, but we will commission you as you're working through the process, actually for both of those, because sometimes people have the teaching project, they know what they want to do, but it takes time to schedule it with their church or whoever they're working with. So we'll work with you on that as well. If we know we'll miss a webinar, should we register? No need to. Just look at the month's conclusion and Pathright, and you will find it there a couple of days later. Someone asks, is there any form of credit that can be transferred to an institution for the Colson Fellows program?
Yes. There's 2 schools. There's Columbia International University, their grad school will provide, I think it's up to 12 hours of graduate school credit for this program. That probably terrifies you, saying what? And but Southeastern Seminary in Raleigh, near Raleigh, over in Wake Forest, will give up to 9 hours of seminary credit for it as well. If you're interested in that, let me know, because you'll need to sign up through them, for the class, and they may ask you to write up a little something about it and so on. But yeah, it's fascinating. These schools have seen the program and consider it to be viable enough that they want it to be a part of, or allowing it to be a part of their curriculum.
Great. Let's see what else. Someone asks if you can share some 3-year plans from past fellows.
Oh, that's from Will. Hey, Will. We had lunch together, actually, a couple months ago. I didn't recognize him, though, because he was wearing a mask. So I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I was reading a question and missed that.
Oh, that's okay. The 3-year plans. Oh, goodness. One of the things we're going to have for you, Will, is we're going to have so many different examples from that. But let me give you some examples, big and small. Big would be like Gabe Lyons that I said. He started this, what he called, Christians talking about in cultural engagement.
Q ideas.
Yeah, and became Q ideas, which is just really, really big. You need to get on the Q ideas. You're going to get to meet him in one of our webinars, but they have some apps. It is a TED Talk, but it's a dynamic Christian way of doing it, and it's phenomenal. Another guy, he wanted to get involved in, I'm trying to remember, a restoration of the city in which he was living. Not gentrification, but a restoration of the city. And so he would, he just felt led by God, and he would go and walk and pray around all that area that he was particularly interested in, and went and talked. God began to lead him to talk to people in the community, as well as going to talk to people who led the community down at City Hall and so on. And finally got something going, and resulted in so many opportunities for sharing the faith, for there to be groups started there, and people having, I'm not sure if they started a Colson Fellows program, but it was just really, really cool what he was doing. And it was through the Fellows program that he had this sense of he wanted to be part of the restoration program. Some have written books as a result. One lady wrote a book about her family in the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. She lost several members of her family to that communist incursion, and she is using that to go and speak to Cambodian expats around the world and share Christ with them. And there's just so many creative ways that people are doing things. And Brooke, you've been kind of making an encyclopedic list of all of those and making it available. It's fascinating reading. You'll be excited and motivated by looking at all those.
And many people join us by becoming cohort directors in their region. So if you're in an online cohort and there is not a regional cohort in your area, perhaps you could be the one to start one next year.
Yeah, that's your 3-year plan, is to help lead. You don't have to be the person, but to help lead a cohort.
Yeah. We had Jim Cape, who joined us. I think he's a C13, so 2 years ago, and maybe C14, but he came into the program knowing that he wanted to start a program in Nashville, and that's exactly what he did. So what is the address of the YouTube videos? We will embed all the videos that you need in Pathright. So you'll have access to all of them there. And then from there, you can jump into YouTube and view them. We actually have them set up as unlisted, so you need the exact link for each video. And that's just because the content that we share, the webinars and other videos that we share, are just for Colson Fellows, and we don't want to make that available to everybody. But again, that will be embedded in Pathright, so you'll have everything you need right there. Sarah asks, do you ever address the culture issues surrounding addiction and incarceration?
Somewhat, not to the full extent that would be helpful for somebody wanting to go into that. However, it's interesting you asked that, is because a number of Colson Fellows have gone into that, in the incarceration part of it, and addiction. I'm involved in prison ministry myself, have been for, goodness gracious, since grad school. And when you talk about addiction, you're talking prison. And usually when you're talking prison, you're talking drugs or alcohol. And those things kind of go together. So we don't talk about that as much as we could, as we should. But if you are interested in getting involved in that as ministry, let me know, and I will hook you up through Colson Center and Colson Fellows.
Great. I'm loving the robust chat that I've been missing because I've been looking at the questions. It's a lot of fun. And thank you, Steve, for helping answer some of those. The last question that we have here in the Q&A tab is actually the first one that came in. Oh, it looks like we have a couple of more coming in. So we will try to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. The next question, can you please include sexual exploitation and the hypersexualization of our culture as one of the topics of engagement? This is a tremendous challenge in our culture. I know we do the video about the sexual revolution with John.
Yeah, and there's what we try to do is to get at the roots of why we are such a sexually saturated culture, and you'll find a number of things addressed that will address that throughout the program. We do not make it as a specific cultural flashpoint. It is one, but we just can't. And again, if that's you have an interest, if you have an interest in that, then pursue that, and let me know if you need more information or some experts to help, and we will pull those together for you.
And one thing before I take the final question and we let you guys go for the evening, another thing that we will be scheduling is just end of the month chats. We may start those in September, just so we have time to get the course rolling and make sure everything is working for everyone. And those would just be optional sessions for you to jump on a webinar with Bill and me and ask your questions. So if you have questions about the content that you're reading or anything else, we will do 1 hour sessions once a month where you can jump on a Zoom webinar just like this and have your questions answered.
Yeah. And it'll be mainly Q&A, right? All
yep.
Q&A, yeah.
All Q&A, yep, yeah. All Q&A. So last question, do you ever address the generational gap that is growing, resulting in many young people detaching themselves from the church?
Yeah, one of the places that we get most of that information is through Access, through the Culture Translator. The divide between the boomers and millennials is huge. The divide between millennials and Generation X and Y and Z are, I mean, you define, and you know, social media has really had a hand in all of that. And you'll find, I think, a lot in the Culture Translator where they discuss this. They give articles that talk about this and some explanation and so on.
Sounds great. Looks like we had one more. Is it necessary to mention universal mentoring in the program?
I'm not sure what that is.
Not either.
John, what is universal mentoring?
And then, oh, thank you. Thank you, Matthew. One note while John is typing, how many non-boomers in the Colson Fellows program? I look around, almost everyone I see is a senior fellow.
Okay, you know, anonymous attendee.
Anonymous attendee. You know, historically that was kind of true. Just the cost of the program and the travel that was involved. But one of the things we're seeing with the move to the regional programs is that we're seeing people, it's more affordable, and we're seeing younger people. Yeah, I participate in the Colorado Springs cohort, and it was a blast this past year because there were people from all ages and stages of life. And thank you. And John just says everyone gets a mentor. Yes, and that looks different for different cohorts, John. Everyone in the regional cohorts does get a mentor, and many times that is going to be part of the leadership team. The online cohorts, it just looks a little bit different based on the cohort. Some of those you're going to be put into smaller groups, so your cohort director will engage with you about that. One thing I wanted to mention is I will be out of the office Tuesday through Thursday this week. Our team knows that I'm going camping in the mountains. I live here in Colorado, and I'm going to be near where there are moose, and everyone on the team knows I love moose, and hopefully I'll see one. We'll find out.
They're delicious, aren't they?
While I'm away, please email if you have any questions, colsonfellows@colsoncenter.org. Julie Balon is the administrator for the program, and she can help answer your questions. And if there's anything she can't answer, she'll direct you to your cohort director, or I will be back at the end of the week. So let's see, is there anything else? Does the program address mental issues, mental health issues?
We really do not. And coming from a family where that's a real issue, we should. But just time and space. So yeah, again, if that's something you want to pursue, then it's great because more and more churches are talking about it and pastors are talking about it. And we've had actually some breakpoints on that as well. And so we will. And if you want to explore that more, let me know.
Someone asked in the chats, how do I sign off? How do I sign up at this point if I miss registration cutoff? You can still apply at colsonfellows.org. Look for the apply now button. And we just encourage you to get it in as soon as possible so that we can move you through the process and get you in. So those are all the questions we have. I apologize if I've missed some in the chat box, but it looks like Steve and Bill were monitoring some of those. So with that, I think we will wrap up.
Okay. Well, God bless you, everybody. Again, we are here to serve. We love doing this, and you will too. And it's a challenge. Don't just bolt this on to your schedule. Realize that next 10 months, say, I'm going to be taking a master's program, and I'm going to make this a priority. And I want to grow spiritually. I want to do all this, and you will find yourself, I think, being very excited about what God is doing. So, Brooke, thank you, dear. Appreciate it always. I hope you get some good pictures of moose and send them to me, and I'll put them with all your other pictures of moose.
I'm enjoying the chats. Thank you, everyone. We are geeked as well. We are super excited. we love this time of year. We're excited to get to know you.
We do. God bless you, everybody. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.